My name is Ellie, and I have a diagnosis of abductor spasmodic dysphonia. I was an extrovert, probably as bubbly as you can get, the person in the room who always had something to say, and probably the loudest person in the room. And I used to, my biggest hobby before the diagnosis was singing. So very much a voice user and somebody who didn't really think too much about my health, I would say. Very happy-go-lucky, very optimistic before my diagnosis. Yeah, so it's probably worth mentioning that I'm a speech pathologist by background, and before my actual diagnosis I noticed a change in my voice probably a good 8 months before I did anything about it. Good speechy there. And I remember noticing mostly in my singing lessons just losing control, not being able to make my voice do what I wanted it to do. And then also when I answered the phone, so being abductor, I have a lot of trouble with breathless sounds. So answering a phone with that bloody H, hello, that's where I started to notice it. And it wasn't until I got quite ill with glandular fever that I got to the point where I had to go and investigate it. And I'd looked in my speechy textbooks and I'd narrowed it down to either spasmodic dysphonia or a psychogenic voice disorder that from some underlying trauma I might not have realised that I had. And I remember going in just really hoping that it wasn't SD, that it was the psychogenic disorder, because I knew that the outlook for treatment options was pretty bleak. I think in my textbook it said, go and get yourself some counselling to deal with the diagnosis. And then when I was diagnosed, so it was a series of visits to speech pathologists, an ENT that didn't specialise in voice, and then an ENT who did specialise in voice. And I got the diagnosis like a week before I took off to Europe for a big trip. And it took me probably a good 6 weeks before it hit me. I was on a boat in Croatia, and I just remember just sitting in a room crying with my best friend, who's also a speechy, because already it had started to impact on my life, and I knew that, it's probably going to be a bit of a road ahead from here. Oh, sorry. So I'm a speech pathologist. This isn't supposed to happen to me. I'm supposed to be the one helping people with voice disorders, not having a voice disorder. So there was a profound, I think, emotional, psychological impact when I got diagnosed, because I had no answers about why. And it also wasn't supposed to happen to me. I'm very talkative. I use my voice so much. I sing. I've dedicated my life to helping people to communicate better. And I feel like a faker today because it's going so well. But honestly, when my treatment's not going well, I'm lucky if I can get a sentence out without spasms. And communication becomes really hard. Relationship-wise, it's hard because I'm now happily married, and I met my partner. I used to work with him, and I knew him before the voice disorder, and then we kind of started dating while I was going through diagnosis and whatnot. And he's been an amazing support. But before we started dating, I was very worried. meeting new people, something that I used to relish in, it become really, really hard. And always feeling like I need to explain, I've got a voice disorder, I've got, like, it really, I think it has probably over the last 4 years since diagnosis, it has defined me for me. Maybe not for others, but definitely for me, which is a bit sad. There are funny things that happen too, though. I remember when I first got diagnosed, my younger brother said to me, "Oh, well, Elle, maybe now you will find someone because you don't talk so much." So, and I hate that he's kind of right. But I think as well, friendships have probably been impacted because I don't have the energy to socialise like I used to. I used to be on the phone constantly, and now I love to text, hate to talk because it's exhausting. And just to, like, this is really effortful, so it's fatiguing. And so at the end of the week, I don't want to go out, I want to rest. I try not to let it stop me in my day-to-day work life. And so because of that, the compensation is like socially. And, you know, I remember very early on, before I was really, before I'd hit a real treatment, before I'd hit my ideal optimal treatment, I remember going out with a group of friends and I sat there and it was noisy and I tried to talk 2 or 3 times and I just couldn't. And it was a really big, like a big group we were out with, and I just sat there and I had to do everything to stop myself from just bursting into tears, because I was like, no one can hear me, no one, it was just really hard. You know, I had a lot to say and I couldn't say it, and those things that used to come so easily, maybe not so much anymore. But, you know, it's something, sorry. Sure, waterproof. But it's something that has, I think, just taken time to adjust to. And I think I'm there now. I'm not as shy to say to my friends, great, you want to catch up with me? I've had a treatment, and if we're going to catch up, it needs to be somewhere quiet, you know, to help me cope. And they're so supportive and understanding of that. But, like, you know, I think it probably has impacted on the amount of socialising that I can do. Probably did too much before, but and it's been, the only other thing I wanted to say about relationships is I think it was hard on my family. So I think it was really hard on my mum, because I did have such a personality change when I first got diagnosed, from being so bubbly and outgoing to really, like, it shook my and in some contexts it still does shake my confidence. So I think that was hard for her to see, but, you know, it's not going to kill me, so we just keep going, don't we? Definitely. I think, one, I've talked a lot about how I talk a lot, and so it has forced me to take a step back and listen more. And I hope that I've become a better listener and hopefully a better friend to people, because I've been able to, forced to take a step back and rest and let other people talk. A lot of my friends are introverts, so I'm sure they relish in this, I love it. The other thing is, I've always worked in the field of disability, and I was so worried when I got diagnosed, who's going to want to speak to you who can't talk? But it actually went the other way. So while I was worried that a lot of clients wouldn't want me because of my voice disorder, I actually had the opposite reaction, where a lot of families felt, because I'm working with profoundly disabled individuals who are often non-verbal, they felt like I had a bit more empathy and insight into the struggle that their child or person in their life might be going through. And when I talked about being able to understand that it's frustrating when you want to say something or get something across and you can't, that is coming from a really genuine place. So I think it's broadened my perspective and also made me like not take things for granted as much. I think when you lose a skill that you've always taken for granted, it makes you kind of appreciate everything else. I have so many stories, Lou. One that sticks out in my mind, and it was very early days, and so this poor fellow would have had no idea, but I remember going out for dinner one night and it was cold and the restaurant had blankets, and I said to the guy, "Can I please grab a blanket?" And he obviously thought I was sick. So he said, "I'll get you a blanket," and imitated my voice disorder back to me, like while getting me this blanket. And I just froze. I was like, I could have gone two ways. I could have just given him a piece of my mind because I was still, you know, grieving the loss of my voice and dealing with it. And I'm like, here's this joker making fun of me. Like, really? Have some tact. But it was also a bit of a epiphany moment when I sat down and spoke about it with my husband. That guy didn't know. He didn't know. He thought he was having a joke. And I'm sure if I'd given him a piece of my mind, he would have been horrified and probably felt awful. So I didn't, thankfully. But just to have some tact is probably my advice. So it is still a chronic health condition, and it is something that has had an impact on the person. You wouldn't go up to someone and make a joke about them having a diagnosis of cancer. Probably not a good idea to go up to them and make a joke about the voice disorder. The other thing I will say is, it's lovely. My friends and family have been amazingly supportive. I'm very lucky. But I don't like it when my voice disorder is brought up in front of people that I maybe haven't disclosed it to without being asked. So I'm usually very, very open about having a voice disorder because I can't hide it. But when my treatment is going really well, and I've moved to a point now where I don't want to let it define me, so I've become a bit more reserved about it. And so when my treatment is going well, I don't necessarily want to tell everybody that I meet that I have a voice disorder, especially when I'm at a point where I can get away with people maybe not noticing. And I've had it a few times, instances where I'll be chatting away and someone in my life will say, "Oh wow, your voice is going really well. Oh, Ellie has a voice disorder." And I just kind of think, like, I know it's not coming from a bad place. I know the intent is lovely, and I love it. I always get a ton of messages when I'm having a treatment day wishing me luck, which I love. But it is a very personal thing, and that I think anyone with any chronic health condition would probably agree. If I want to share it, let me share it. Don't share it for me, and please don't put me in a position where I'm forced to disclose it when I might not be comfortable doing so. I think so along with, there was one more thing I remembered I wanted to say, which everyone's probably said today. Don't talk for me. I can talk, right? I can communicate. I'd like to think I'm quite articulate. If I need you to talk for me, I'll tell you. You'll be able to tell. So on bad voice days, I don't know about you, but waiters seem to never understand what I can say. Never, ever. And maybe it's the noise. I don't know. Other people will be understanding me just fine, but waiters never. And so I'll say to my friends, I'm having a bad voice day. Can you order whatever for me? So yeah, sure, beauty. Go ahead. And I appreciate that. And I have a group of close friends who can now read me and they'll be able to look at me and tell she wants me to do it or she doesn't. But don't just jump in and start talking for me. And if you can see the person in your life is struggling and you want to help them, just have the courtesy to ask them, do you need me to give you a hand with that? My husband, God love him, has become very good when I'm having bad voice days at telling my stories for me when I ask him to. He never steps over the line, but he's gotten that good. Like, he'll add all the little embellishments and things in that I would normally do, because he used to get in trouble for when I'd ask him, tell them what happened, and he'd tell his shortened version, and afterwards I'd be like, that's not how I would tell the story. So helping with that. And then I think if you've got someone in your life who has a voice disorder, just understanding that texting is easier. If I'm not taking your call, it's not because I'm ignoring you, it's probably because I'm fatigued and I can't talk on the phone. And also understanding that it'll go up and down. So you might see them one week and their voice is really good. That doesn't mean life has just gotten easy and it's gone away. You know, the next time you see them, they might be struggling a little bit more. So just keeping in mind that it is fatiguing. And little things, like if we're going out for dinner, like my best friend, she always offers to, she just jumps in and says, oh, I'll book, so that I don't even have to deal with that. You know, little things like that make a difference. They say talking in an accent. I don't do that. I think it would be weird if I came to work and I was like, Pommy, all of a sudden. I don't know. Probably my biggest tip and trick would be looking after myself holistically, as in managing fatigue and stress. So it doesn't matter how much Botox is in there, and I got a hell of a lot right now. It doesn't matter how much is in there. If I'm really fatigued or really stressed, it won't work. That seems to have a really big impact on my voice disorder. And it might even be going as far as having to reevaluate your life and look at what you're doing work-wise. So I had to change jobs about a year ago because I just wasn't coping, and I had to be really realistic about that. And the difference in my voice since changing jobs has just been remarkable. I'm not driving as much now as what I did in my other job, and driving really fatigues me. So, you know, making compensations there has probably helped. And when I say fatigue, I mean fatiguing your body. I don't mean just resting your voice. Like, if I have a day of not talking to anyone, it doesn't necessarily make it better, if that makes sense. And I still do a lot of presentations for work because I love doing them. But when I do them, I make sure I'm mic'd up so that I don't have to project and misuse my voice in that way, because that's a good way of causing other problems for myself and my voice. And I think, not consciously, but I think there's words I seem to avoid, you know, and I'll practice like to record the voice message on my phone at work. I had to practice, and I waited until there was a day where I was like, oh, my voice seems pretty good today. This is a good day to record that voice message. So just being conscious, I guess, of that. So, like I said to you, I used to sing, but although I can talk in front of anyone, I used to have a lot of fear around singing in front of people, and I really, really regret not taking more opportunities to do that. Hey, I nearly made it to the end. Yeah, I really regret being so caught up and worried about how my voice would be perceived by others when I would sing, and I missed a lot of opportunities to do things that would have been really fun, that I would have got a lot of joy out of, because I was worried about that. And of course now I really don't sing at all. I was very lucky, very fortunate that a good friend of mine asked me to sing at her wedding, that like 6 months before my voice started to decline. So, and that was the last performance that I did, and she's got a video of that. So that's really lovely. But I would have told younger me just to get over it and enjoy my voice and enjoy not being held back. Yeah. So that's probably what I would say. Don't worry. If you've got something to say, just get up and say it. Use your voice, you know, love it, appreciate it, and use it. Sorry.